Okay, this time we're on to page 6, and we're changing this around. We're going to go from whatever information we're given. Instead of going from information to a graph, we're going to take the information and write an equation out of it instead. So sometimes you're actually given a graph to start with, as in the case of number 50. So basically what I'm looking for here is if I can figure out what the y-intercept is, it's usually very easy to find the slope. And so most of the time, if I know what the y-intercept is, I can use this equation and just plug it right in. So in this case, where's the y-intercept in number 50? Well, it turns out it's right here, where it crosses the y-axis at positive 2. So if I'm using the y equals mx plus b format, I want to figure out what the slope is and what the intercept is. I just said that the intercept is positive 2, so I can go ahead and write that in. And then I have to ask myself, what does it take to get from there to the other point down here? Now, in this particular problem, they actually plot a point for you, so it's very easy to figure out which one you want to use. But if you have a graph where you don't have points plotted, you still go about it by finding the y-intercept. And then the other point that you're going to pick just needs to be somewhere to the right of that y-intercept on your graph. So notice that this point is to the right of this one. Okay? So anyway, let's use the slope man method to figure out what the slope actually is. Rise over run will tell us to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm down 5 this way. Then I got to move right, 1, 2. So my slope is really negative 5 over 2. Whereas in number 51, again, we're looking for a slope and an intercept. It just so happens that in number 51, they tell you both of them. So this is a very easy equation to write. The m is negative 3, and the y is positive 4. And you are done. Okay, as soon as we get away from knowing what the intercept is, if you look at number 52, there is nothing mentioning an intercept anywhere in this problem. And so, even though it gives you a coordinate point like this, that doesn't mean that that's the y-intercept. So, unfortunately, you don't know what that is. If that's the case, you can't just go straight to y equals mx plus b. You have to go with this formula called point-slope form. So, if you're using point-slope form, it means to work it out, you need a point and a slope. So, hopefully, in your problem, they give it to you. In this case, they give us a point and they give us a slope, so it's just about substitution. This should be very easy. So we put y1 is right here. So that y1 is 1. The m is the slope, so 1/2. And x1 is also 1. All right, now we need to do a little simplifying. We'll keep this side the same for a moment, and we'll distribute over here. So 1/2 x, and half of negative 1 is negative 1/2. And now, the last step I want to do is add 1 to both sides, so that y will be by itself. So the 1/2 x stays by itself. And negative 1/2 plus 1, you can use a calculator if you want, or if you're pretty good at fractions, negative 1/2 plus 1 is positive 1/2. This is the answer to that. Notice it's an equation that fits y equals mx plus b format, but again, there was no way to come up with what the y-intercept was. So this time again, we're faced with a problem that does not give us a y-intercept. So that automatically should take you to this formula, point-slope formula. And so we do have a point, so that part's taken care of. We don't necessarily have the slope. But this problem does tell it to you, it just gives it to you in a different way. All of this stuff about perpendicular to this equation, what that really means is this equation has a slope, which, if you remember, this x over 3 really means y equals 1/3 x minus 5. But again, it wants something perpendicular to that slope. So ultimately what they're telling you is the slope you want to use is perpendicular to 1/3. That means it's opposite sign and it's a reciprocal. So I want the opposite sign reciprocal of 1/3. That is negative 3 over 1. Or in other words, negative 3. So now I have the slope and I have a point. I'm ready to use this formula. Y1 is 2. M is negative 3. And x1, notice I wrote the x minus, x1 is negative 2. So I'm sure that somewhere along the way you learned that two negatives back to back make a positive. A lot of people like to write a little plus sign in there like that. That's okay. So we need to simplify this a little bit. Leave this side alone. Distribute over here. Negative 3x. Negative 3 times positive 2 is negative 6. And in one step, we get y by itself by adding 2 to both sides. So our final answer is negative 3x minus 4. Okay, we're on to our last problem. This one says write an equation that gives the rent based on the selling price. The key here is you're writing an equation. So if you don't know the y-intercept right away, again, there's no way to do this other than using point-slope method. So starting with this once again. The key is always remember that you use this when you don't know what the intercept is. So I'm looking for a point and a slope to do this. So you have a chart, and I wrote down just a few numbers of it. If you have a chart, you have a whole bunch of points. Right? They don't write them as coordinate points, but you can think of it that way. The column on the left is x, and the column on the right is y. So basically what I have is 60, 2, and 100, 6, as if they were coordinate points. So the problem here is not so much having a point for x1 and y1. We'll use 60 and 2 for that. But I don't have a slope. But if you remember, we do have a slope formula for when you have 2 points. This is also written right on your review sheet. So basically what I'm saying is, give me the y-coordinate of the second point minus the y-coordinate of the first point over the x-coordinate of the second point minus the x-coordinate of the first point. So let's simplify that a little. We get 4 over 40. And we don't want that. We want a reduced answer. So how many times does 4 go into 4? 1 time. How many times does it go into 40? 10 times. So our slope is 1 over 10. Okay, so we're almost done. We have our slope, and we have a point. Let's put it in the point-slope equation. So y minus y1 is 2. M we now know is 1 over 10. X minus x1 is 60. And now I need to clean this up a little. 1 over 10 times x. And then 1 over 10 times negative 60. That's like saying negative 60 divided by 10. That's negative 6. And finally, one more step. This time I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I'll get y equals 1/10 x minus 4. And that would be your final answer for this problem. If you want, you can also check this just to make sure you did it right. And I guess with a word problem, I'd probably advise doing that. Let's do a little check down here in the corner. If you look at your chart, Marvin Garden says that it's $280 for a selling price and that the rent is $24. What this equation tells you is you should be able to enter the selling price here and you should get 24 as an answer. So let's see if that works. So Marvin Garden is $280 And so 1/10 of 280, that's like 280 divided by 10, 28 minus 4. You do get 24 as an answer, which tells you that your equation is correct. All right, that's the end of the running test review. The other videos are already posted. So if you have any questions with this, hopefully the video helped you out. If it didn't, or you didn't get everything you needed, you can always come and see me in homeroom on Friday before you have your test. All right, guys, good luck.